persist, and I mentioned to my senior manager that if I were to find out who was doing this, got a name because someone said so-and-so said they, and if I found out what it was and what the items or the process of doing this, and got who was doing it, I would go straight to the police. I would bypass security. And at this point, things got worse. I guess because I mentioned police, and probably maybe that would become public. It wouldn't have been my decision to make it public. FedEx does a lot of things secretly. I mean, if someone has a serious accident or something, you don't hear about it. So it wouldn't be me to bring something public. It would just be, I guess, the police if it went that far. But I'm sure they wouldn't mention anything if FedEx didn't want them to. I don't know. But it got worse. Not only was I now getting these fumes from the three, and I say Lori because it's coming from her area, so Lori, Joe, and Deborah, and now I'm getting it from someone else in Joe's area who sits where Susan Dees sits to the right of her aisle and in the center, and also a few people in IPD who I felt, because of who they were, might be friends of Deborah or Mike or Joe. So I'm getting it from them as well now. I go to my car on lunch or break. I like to sit in my car when I eat my lunch, kind of quiet place to sit. And if I want to listen to 640, the religious station, or WLOK, I can listen to that, the music, or some sermons. And I get out of my car to go back in, I'm getting the fumes. I go to the elevator, get in the elevator, I'm getting the fumes. And so I'm getting the fumes from other people now, too. And I found once that when I came from my car, got in the elevator, I thought the elevator was going to go up. I didn't realize it was going down. And I was already in. So I'm riding down. The elevator opened. There's a girl standing in the door. And when I'm getting in the elevator, there's no fumes. I'm surprised. The elevator door opens. The person standing there, they're surprised to see me there. And they stand there for a second, and then they get in. Comes in with them is the fume that I'm usually getting. You know what I'm thinking? And so they're standing there. They push the button 2 to go back up. And I'm thinking the fumes came in with them. It could be that someone there was there before them was spraying something and decided to leave when they saw them. Or, so the fumes were now in the elevator. And I look at her and I see that there's a canister in her hand, a little thin canister, about like that, and maybe a finger and a half long. It's kind of silverish, or a little color to it. And it has a white cap, and she has a thumb on it. And I look at her tag, it says Hicks. You know, and this is not somebody I've seen before. I'm like wondering, you know. So she's looking a little irritable, waiting for the elevator to open, and she didn't say anything coming in. And I'm thinking, later I thought anyway, maybe she didn't say anything because she didn't want to take in anything. But I thought that to be strange, and when I'm coming back from lunch or break from my car, I noticed that when the elevator bell rings, that, because it's now, before it was always coming up from the bottom, or maybe something, or coming down from the top. It was never there anymore, even if someone just got out. It was never there anymore. But last week, it was there when I got in. But when I push and the door opens, the bell rings. And I always hear the door of the bathroom, which is right across from the elevator. That inner door would open, and then the outer door would open. But I wouldn't get into the elevator until I saw who was coming out the door. It was always the same person. No matter what time I went to lunch or break, it was always the same person coming out of there. And I thought, well, that proves it. And so one of the other parts of this that got worse was that, and I know it might sound paranoid, that it just doesn't stop at work, that I'm having some problems from something else, and it sounds paranoid, but I'm saying it because I don't think, again, that this is something that's isolated to me or isolated to my floor at work, or just the managers or manager who is doing this. Because also, when I'm making this report, let me just say this too. I'm making this report because this again happened recently. March 30th, I come back from break, and Deborah Chapman is now standing in the aisle to the right of me at a cube behind me. And I'm thinking that she's there to move some stuff around for Lori because I hear her rattling plastic bags. I sit down to work. I get on the phone, I'm on a call, leaving a voicemail, and I get these fumes again in my mouth, nose, and eyes. So I try to get off this call as quick as I can and unhook from the headset to see what it is that's going on behind me so that I can report it if I can catch it as quick as possible. So I'm unhooking, I get up, I move to go around to find out what's going on. Deborah moves from where she was at the entrance of that cube to the wall of it that's closest to me and starts wiping off the top. I go around, there's a bottle sitting at the edge of the desk towards the entrance, and I look to the cube in front of her to see if anybody's there or anything there that could be bothering me. Nothing. I go back and I look at the bottle that's sitting there. I get a close look at it to get the words and everything off of it so that I can report that to management. I go back to my desk. I rehook. I'll call Paul and ask him to come down because there's something that Deborah has that's taking my breath away, and that's bothering me. He comes down with another manager, and they look around at my desk, or the manager does. She does. Paul walks over with me over to where Deborah was. There's no Deborah, no bottle, and he goes to look for her. I go back to my desk where the manager is, and she's saying that she didn't see any chemicals. And I inform her and the manager who has placed Deborah behind me and tell them what happened. No one looks for Deborah except Paul. They are talking about seating arrangements. And Deborah passes back. One of the managers sees her but does not act. And I ask why nobody's going to talk to her or try and find out what's going on. When the manager says she doesn't know what's going on and hadn't seen Deborah. And Yvette states, well, she just passed. But she doesn't try to stop her or ask her any questions. So Paul comes back, and I tell him she just passed, but still nobody moves to go and talk to her. She has exited to the east before Paul comes. Now she passes the managers, goes to her desk. Then when Paul has come back, I tell him that she just passed. No one moves to go to her. I go to look to see what she's doing, and now she's headed towards the west exit. So no one is do anything about this, so I go and do another workplace violence report because it looks like management is not going to do anything. And I want to make this report because I want to make sure someone knows this has happened again. Although I'm getting the fumes and everything from the area, this was coming from over. And I knew it was her, and now they've moved her behind me. When I mentioned this to the senior manager, she states that she has told the manager that Deborah could sit there and that the area there will be for that manager. And she said, oh, my bad, I forgot all about you and Deborah. That doesn't make any sense to me because we have been talking about this. So how could she forget? And I make the report and I go down and I give the same information to security. As we are sitting down to make this report, security and I, Mr. Nichols, he tells me he has already talked to HR and the board because he's already talked to management. So I'm thinking, why am I making a report with you if you've already done what you're going to do? We make the report, and that's my thought. But we make the report, and at the end of the report, the recording again, the writing again, and I also mentioned Mr. Cole. And so this is new to him. And at the end of the report, he said, well, that's I'm going to give this to HR and the board, and so that's all I can do. I said, so security's not going to do any investigation on this. He said, I just make the report. There's nothing more that I can do. And management would have to do the rest. He has finished his report. He's received new information. I even stated that Miss Joyce has come over to my desk when I was getting some of the heaviest fumes. It was also sulfur. I've gotten some heavy sulfur fume powder or whatever. And Miss Joyce came over and she asked what that was. It took her breath away. She had to step away. I've mentioned this, but his report now is over. So no one's doing anything. No one intends to do anything. So that's why I'm making this video, because I'm thinking that someone else out there is having this problem. Because when I was making the second report, a manager came in and she stated that Deborah will be sitting there. She said that I could move to her area. I'm thinking I'm not going to move to your area because I've passed your area a couple of times and someone there is getting some fumes too. And I mentioned this to my senior manager after I made the report with security, that someone in Yvette's area is getting the same problem, because I was talking to someone on one of the aisles and slowly I started to get the fumes. I don't think it was coming from that person's area. I think it was coming from the aisle over on the left side of her, because the faintness of it wasn't as strong. So I passed that manager's area twice, and I'm getting that same thing. And Paul, who I asked to come down, who works in my area with my manager, and my manager was out again this time because of bereavement. I went past Paul's area 3 times and felt it. So no, I don't need to go to this other manager's area because someone else there is getting the same problem. And that's why I feel that it's not isolated, that it's happening to other people. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to make this video. When I said this to the senior manager about the other areas, she didn't ask me what area, what aisle, where exactly was it, what time, what day. I mentioned both to Yvette and Paul's, and her only comment was, oh, so you think it's in Paul's office? I said, no, somebody in Paul's area. She didn't ask me exactly where. She didn't ask me anything specific. It just laid flat right there. So I felt this video was something I need to do because somebody else out there is having the same problem.